So, Mr. Chairman, I am one of the few people leaving this room not convinced that we will have a free and fair election.
You wait for the responses before you come in.
If that is I'm looking at the document
Okay.
and what they presented. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, we are giving the naysayers reason to doubt us from the start. The voter turn-up, if you look at the results from 2011, 2016, and 2021, the number of registered voters goes on increasing, but the voter turn-up goes on reducing. If you look at the statistics from 2011, 2016, and 2021, what is wrong? I thank you.
337 billion. You were able to spend only 163.07. So there was still, you remained with a balance of 2.3. So how do you reconcile if all the money had all been given to you? If you were not able to spend all the money which was given to you? Because even this little which was given to you, you are not able to spend all of it. So just clarify that, because there is that difference of 2 billion of what was released which you were not able to spend. On the number of registered voters, is this a coincidence with what we have been reading in the papers, NRM party saying they have registered voters of 20 million? Because yours also has also increased from 18 to 20 million registered voters. Is it a coincidence? That's a national voter register. It's tallying with the one of the NRM voter register. The other one is on, if you could explain more on these cases which are still pending in the court. What type of cases are these? On page 7. And then the issue of the election, you conducted by-elections in other places, Dokolo, Kisoro, Serere, and you are mentioning here that you are able to also conduct the lower council, fill other lower council portions. But the one of Serere, the woman councillor for Bugondo sub-county, resigned just barely two months after election. I wonder why, when you're doing the by-election in Serere, why that was not so. Bugondo sub-county has now spent 5 years without the woman councillor. So I don't know why that was omitted. The other issue is on, have you tried to reconcile your figures with the WUBOS? Because WUBOS has had confusing figures. I wrote in Feb to the executive director of WUBOS that, please, can you give me the population per district, per constituency in the whole country? They responded to me that we have not yet completed. We shall give you the complete census in March. March has ended, we are in April. I have not received. So I don't know which figures they released. So I don't want to just see how I have tried to reconcile those figures. The other issue is on page 20. Just help me. What's the difference between K and M? K and M, the payment of polling day activities vis-a-vis the payment of polling day officials. And then even O, deployment of subcon. So I just want some clarification on that, because to me looks to be some similarity. The figure you have put for publicity, outreaches, voter education, I see it here quite high. And yet at the same time you are saying there is a deficit on continuous voter education of 3.018 on page 21. Just try to reconcile, help me to reconcile those figures. What are you trying to what are you trying to do to address this issue of these batteries? I don't want to call them fake batteries, which with the low battery life, which you UBOs had procured now that we are going for election, because for them they can afford to do that, but not for the Electoral Commission. What are you planning to do to address that issue? Because it can cause a big challenge, a big challenge on election day if we're able to use that that equipment. The last one is, I just been wondering why for us we get nominations so early, and this is what causes even expensive, makes elections very expensive. How you get nominated in October or September, but then the voting is the election date is in January. We have seen our made election observations under Pan-African Parliament and the Commonwealth. Countries announce elections just a month, 2 months to the election date. But for us here, when you announce, or even just when you release a roadmap, you see what's happening now. Already people are with the posters up before even anything else. So that makes our elections very expensive, because once you have nominated me in September, there is no way I can now do anything. So you see, the output of people comes down because they are now engaged in politics. So 4 or 5 months. If it is for presidential, it's okay, 2 or 3 months. But now you find a constituency which even has 2,000 voters. You are giving them 3 months to campaign. So I just want to know what is that, because we have seen others. Just a month and elections taking place. I was in Seychelles last week. They are having elections in September. Their nominations is on the 13th of July, and elections in September. So what is that so unique with us that we have to do all that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, let's keep it short.
Much. Also wish to be guided, the Chair, on something like acting secretary, because the areas where we need our list to be clear, because someone can even claim in the future that I was acting and I was in acting capacity, so I have less to state. So I need to be guided much more on that. Mr. Chairman, still, with the Electoral Commission, and the Chairman has highlighted us the mandate the Electoral Commission has to organize a free and conduct a fair election. Mr. Chairman, Electoral Commission, do you see that in your mandate? If yes, why are we seeing such things happening, and at the end we find no one to give accountability? Especially, I don't know whether in Uganda, where I follow much, with elections in Uganda, it turns to be like a war under your watch. So I think before us, you need to assure us that after having many challenges in the by-election of a division, a simple district, are you ready to organize the national election? That's one. I need to be well versed on that. On the same, Chair, we have seen the budget increment every elections from 2011 up to date. Can we say that the more money budgeted in the election process causes more violence, so that we can see how to reduce money? So because the money, I think, is causing a problem and causing maybe serious injuries on individuals, because there is a lot of money. That's why we are seeing JAT, seeing other bodies coming in, because there is money. So we advise us either to reduce on the budget, so we reduce on the violence. Chair, there is also something we can say. You recruited the election officers at the sub-county levels. Have you taken time to scrutinize those people you have given work according where we are going? The example we can give, the one of Kawempe, we saw him even throwing down papers. before the public watching, to give false information. So those are people we are going to have, even when you are going for national election. If you have not taken time to scrutinize those people, you need also to go back and see whether you are choosing right people or something must be done on that. Last one, Chair. There was money which was released for Electoral Commission towards the registration of voters, and the NIDA came in. Can we know that they shared the responsibility? Their budget had to change. So if that is the case, can they specify with us and update us how the money they had budgeted for that exercise is still doing or at their disposal, and we see what we can do with that money as a committee? Thank you so much.
We've been raising this issue for the last 4 years. It regards Section 14A of the Political Parties and Organizations Act regarding political party financing during elections. Mr. Chairman, the law says in the election year, money is distributed equally to political parties. What the EC has been doing is to give the NRM and now NUP the biggest chunk using numerical strength. And yet the law is very clear. I have raised it with my Lord. In the 10th Parliament, I raised it. His Lordship promised that they would behave in the last election. They didn't. I want to find out, my Lord, whether this time round you are prepared to follow the letter and the spirit of the law. Now that we are in an election year, and I want to see how it is reflected in your budget, and that was a specific amendment to the law that we made here. The political parties and organizations, we specifically made an amendment on political party funding in the election year. These other years, it's okay. The distribution is on the basis of numerical strength. Yes, I've been receiving.
Okay.
Yes, yes, I've been receiving. The party has been receiving.
In the spirit of transparency, how much have you been receiving?
No, I account. They have the records. And by the way, JEMA is the only party that accounts on time. On time. Okay, and they are there. They can confirm. These people of NRM, they take long to account, and these others. In JEMA, we account on time, and they know, and they are here. So, my Lord, I want to find out whether this time round, and if you don't do so, I may be compelled to take you to court, because that's what the law says. So, this is election year. I hope that this time round you will behave as you have promised before. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The effect of what you are proposing is that out of the 45 billions, is it 45 billion? Out of the 45 billions, how many parties are in Parliament?
Getting a problem. Don't demoralize it to JEMA. I'm talking about the law, and there is nothing we can do about it. Yes, so my Lord, I am looking at you with a keen eye this time around. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable Sijan, take it up from there.
If JEMA succeeds on that, I am crossing to JEMA. Honorable Chair, I want to draw my Lord's attention to page 21, and that's Appendix X, Table 5. We will read that together with the 6.0 F on page 30. Table 5 lists underfunded and unfunded priorities. Of course, on the list we can't tell what is underfunded and what is unfunded. I have seen through your submission that items which have not been funded prior, such as the construction of the headquarters in Lubowa, you've not executed. But we have seen that you have continued to conduct elections, whether there is comprehensive and continuous voter education or not, whether there is sufficient funding for that or not, you have continued to conduct those elections. My question now is with regard to how comprehensive and continuous, how effective that comprehensive training, voter education is, given that we see in your report on the 2021 presidential elections, we had districts which returned up to 11% invalid votes, which I think that is an indicator of dysfunctional, insufficient, or ineffective voter education. Of course, we cannot fault you for the quality of the voters' decision making in who they elect. We see that majority of our voters vote candidates on the basis of who sings Kibe Sakalewa better. But with now these indicators of invalid votes, having 11% of invalid votes returned, of course some districts returned 0 point something, 1%, but we have 8, 9, 11%. My lord, this I think is quite glaring, quite unfortunate. So I wonder why you continue to conduct elections even where voter education is either underfunded or unfunded. I was not able to draw a distinction because Table 5 does not show exactly what is unfunded. My opinion would be that if an item is unfunded, then it shouldn't be carried out, and if it is necessary for conducting a free and fair election and it hasn't been done, then the election shouldn't happen. I submit.
Thank you. Joanne?
I draw our attention to page 21 under the funding gaps. We see that we have a 179.71 billion funding gap. And I feel like we need to look at what items, all of these items are important, but now that we're in an election year, we need to see which items are actually urgent, considering that we are already in the election year. And looking at the items there, I would say administrative units, the LC1, LC2, and the Women Council elections, those ones are both important and urgent. So we need to, I urge our members that this is something that we need to allocate funds to. That's 58 billion. Now looking at continuous voter education, I think that is also something that's very important and is urgent since we are in the election year. The same as domestic arrears. I suspect these are suppliers for the Electoral Commission. Now, if we have 5.9 billion, a gap of 5.9 billion, that means when you need the services of these same suppliers, they may not be able to follow through. So I feel that this is an important and urgent issue. Now, where we come to wage, number 9, wage, there's the aspect of the final installment for enhancement, but there's also remuneration of new staff in the new 10 cities and the district of Terego. I feel the enhancement is important, but it may not be so urgent. But the remuneration of the 10 new staff is important. So I feel like we need to prioritize what is needed, like the construction of a new building is important, but may not be urgent for the exercise that we're going into. Some of those could be postponed to maybe the coming year. But there are those issues, those items. Item number 1, that is the LC1, LC2, Women Council elections. Item number 5, the voter education. and then domestic arrears, because we need those suppliers, and then the wages for the EC staff for the 10 new cities and the Terego district. Lastly, I just wanted to ask a question. In my district of Madiokolo, the location of the Electoral Commission offices is far from the center. Our headquarters is in the center of the district, but the Electoral Commission offices were rented at a very far place. And when this was against most of the voters and most of the community wanted the Electoral Commission offices at the headquarters. But the reason was given that there was no electricity and there was no internet. As we speak now, there is electricity, there is internet, and there is even office space, because our district has constructed a huge new administrative offices. And so there are a number of empty offices in the old administrative block. My request would be that the EC could relocate to that central place where voters can easily access it. Because now there is power, there is electricity, and there is space. There is no reason for the EC offices to be located at a very far distance from where voters can reach. So I would I would like some clarification on that, and if it's possible to enhance the voting exercise. Thank you so much.
Fair enough. We handled really. But on the budget, yeah, I think 179 is not too big for us as a committee to push to ensure that the commission is well facilitated and they don't have any issues arising out of either lack of funding or underfunding. But that is for us as a committee to further scrutinize. Who is next there? Honorable Fox.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I will also start from that page 21, table 5, item 1. The Commission reports in respect of administrative units LC1, LC2, and Women Council Committee elections that their budget is 58.134 billion. The amount allocated is up 58.134. That is consistent with their narrative on page 26, item 11. And I would invite you to move to that page 26, item 11, where they report the funds allocated are not sufficient to cover the Commission's budget for financial year 25-26 because a number of critical activities that remain underfunded or unfunded, including women councils and committees and administrative units elections, Uganda shillings 58.134. Then we move on to page 28, item 17. Page 28, item 17. The Commission reports as follows. The Commission has allocated Uganda shillings 93.874 billion for the conduct of special interest group elections. Secretary, are we there? Therein lies my confusion. The special interest elections includes women councils, local councils, youth, and special interest groups. So does this speak to your report that you have these same elections and unfunded to the tune of 58.134 billion? Can you reconcile those different positions? Number two, and this is in respect of your report at page 27. budgetary challenges. The very last sentence, item 14. The challenges you had with the use of WUBOS tablets for voter verification. You are very polite. You report that the battery life is low. At page 29, you go back to the same issue. Page 29, item D. Insufficient provision of funds for the election, especially local governments. Now, Honorable Chair, we are going for very important elections, presidential and parliamentary. We need biometric verification at that election. We are in the month of April, a couple of months away from the general elections in January. And the Electoral Commission is, I didn't want to use the word massaging, but I may be forced to use that same word, massaging a fundamental problem. They have been given equipment that they themselves even admit are obsolete. They admit they have low battery life. Even for purposes of registration, they had fundamental challenges with those sets of equipment. But they are not firmly rejecting the use of this equipment. They are not firmly asking for funds to buy equipment that will be helpful at the general elections. What guarantees do we have that after the elections we shall not be at the same place in a post-mortem discussing how we had failed general elections? My Lord, do you really foresee yourself working with this same obsolete equipment and delivering free and fair elections in 2026? Lastly, Honorable Chair, my Lord invited us to visit their home, their new home. But we all know that they are renting. They are squatters. So this wonderful squatter is inviting us to somebody else's home. They have since become nomadic. They migrated from Ginger Road to some other place in industrial area. The question I'm asking is, my Lord, when do you intend to stop being nomadic? When Honorable Stephen Tashobia was the chairperson of this committee, we took a position that every government entity must have a permanent home, and we must stop paying rent for government entities. He migrated to the Electoral Commission. I thought he had carried the same virtues. I want to ask him a direct question. What stops you from having a permanent home? Can you please tell us what we should do to help you have a permanent home? I beg to submit.
I want to give a word of compliment to my Lord the Chairman and the team for delivering the Kawempe by-elections. My Lord, during the two elections I participated in, the last one in 2021, at the Tally Center, the Tally Center was attacked by armed with AK-47 and the rest. And your election official who was there was the first time for him to hear a gunshot. So the moment the bullet started flowing in, he immediately dashed under the chairs and started crying literally like a P1 child. He had never had. And you can verify this, but he managed to recover and went on. So what happened in Kawempe I would understand, the challenges, but I'm glad that you stood your ground and declared the winner. My first question is, going to 2026 election, what is the minimum for free and fair elections that the Commission would like to deliver to Ugandans? The elements, the minimum elements of your free and fair elections for 2026. I have looked at the Ministerial policy statement, and the first point I would like you to address us is on the targets you have set, which is to conduct civic awareness and voter education targeting about 8 million voters. You have registered 20 million, and your target is 8 million. It is also not a coincidence that actually the 8 million may be the ones going to turn up to vote. I think in the last election the figures was around that as well, maybe less. That speaks to the integrity of this register in relation to the voter turnout. The Commission has consistently reported low voter turnout, I think average about 65%. And yet when you go to some polling stations, as reported, the voter turnout is 100%. What explains this particular disparity from the point of view of the Electoral Commission? And do these voters actually exist? That consistently we are only having 65%, where are the 35%? The second issue is your target in your M&E framework, the number of polling stations that you are going to reorganize and align. You stated it as being 42,000. That is in your ministerial policy statement. But my Lord, the chairman has presented, and I think the secretary as well, that you have confirmed 37,696. Going into an election year with this discrepancy, and for us, we understand how the difference of 5,000 polling stations hidden somewhere within your documentation, 42 versus 37. Wouldn't it raise a serious matter amongst the candidates when your election results come out and there are contestation on some maybe none or existent polling stations amounting to this number of about 5,000. The other one is about the percentage of eligible voters captured in the National Voters Register with correct particulars. And you have set them varyingly in your documents at 85% and 96%. I find it difficult to accept that you want to do it at less than 100% as your target. Why would you leave even a small window, even if it's just 4% or 15% of eligible voters captured now, I can say, with incorrect particulars? Why would we have a margin of error for incorrect particulars captured in the National Voter Register, yet you have a series of activities planned in ensuring the integrity of the voters register? The other issue which we had carried from the budget framework paper is the demarcation, the update and demarcation. You call it an or demarcation of the administrative units. I remember I raised this concern, especially with cities, that in many of these cities, and I can cite the one of Lira City, the constituency, the two constituencies also have the same electoral area for the local government elections. In Lira City East, I think they have about 78 polling stations. So the the city councillor is going to campaign in the same geographical, same polling station as the member of parliament. And my lord, you had that time explained that this is coming from the law, which I think is correct. But then my question was whether the commission has now taken charge and will reorganize parliamentary constituencies also to speak to the spirit and letter of the law using the population quota. Because we have, and colleagues can testify, we have constituencies here with about 3,000 voters, I think 2,000 voters and 3,000. So how do we address that? And it's a big concern. I don't know whether the window has now closed completely for that demarcation, or it is something the commission is going to consider once again. Closely related is your indicator for proportion of elective positions filled within the provisions of the law. And the percentage also does not speak to 100%. So, barring any catastrophe or something like that, my question is, why would you go into a general elections and then set your target for some and not others, assuming even this funding is available for all the elective positions? On the plans to improve, you have listed a number of them. I am particularly interested in lobbying for timely amendments. What are the issues that you have proposed or you have? Because the stakeholders are here. What are those critical issues that you have proposed or you are about to propose for amendments in the electoral laws that needs to be captured? And then I have not seen anywhere how you intend to deal with the interferences by members of the security and militias, etc. in elections. We have seen at rallies, we have seen at consultations. I think the law now allows presidential aspirants to move and consult, and even on voting day, as we have seen happening in Kawempe. I move to the question raised by Honorable Basalira. My interest is just to know the breakdown of the 45 billion, how political parties are going to share. The details are not here. We just see a block figure of 45. So please share with us. We want to know each party, and if there is any areas owed to any political party, we need to have that. And yeah, thank you. On the issue of the budget estimates, there seem to be huge disparities between what is presented to us in the ministerial policy statement. I looked at page 35 from what the ministry presented to us. The figures are 340 billion, and the budget estimates are talking now to 594, and I suppose this ministerial policy statement was presented after the second budget call circular. I don't know, but I think that's it. So why would you prepare this ministerial policy statement that by now we should actually disregard it completely, and yet we have been preparing to interact with you on the basis of this document? All the figures have been adjusted. For example, on election management, you had proposed to use 101 billion, but now in the new document you have just supplied to us, it is 185. I think the same on education. I think you call it education something, which was 10 billion, but now we see 13, and we have just received this document. So I wanted to propose that before you ask us to provide the 179, there are a number of budget lines that may need to be reviewed critically. Maybe you will be able to realize some money available. And I've picked a few here. There is a budget line given for review of budget framework paper and ministerial policy statements outside the printing. And then a budget line, I think 0005 on staff appraisal, disciplinary and training. where money is actually proposed, but I don't know this kind of staff appraisal and disciplinary, what expenses beyond maybe the venue and some refreshments and they're huge. 3.2 billion for a seminar. I think it's one seminar. In fact, somebody to attend the seminar for the ACPAU, and then after produce 2 reports. And when you look at that, maybe you can realize some savings out of that. So there are a lot of areas that are a bit questionable that you will need to respond to. The last question I would like to ask is on the fate of political parties. First, there are a number of political parties that applied, and I know they continue to apply to be registered. I don't know how many you have received, entities seeking to be registered as political parties. How many have you registered? How many have you rejected? And how many have you deregistered for non-compliance within the register? And if you have not yet given decisions on some, how much time do they have? For example, I know you have told us elections are sequence and they have deadlines. So how long do some of these parties have to know their fate, whether they will be able to be registered, and if they are not, what are their options to participate in the elections? You can combine that with a question that last time you promised to look through, whether you received complaints from the president, both in his capacity as a former candidate in the election, but also as a chairman of a political party, where he has severally accused electoral commission and other political of stealing votes that belong to him. And of recent, we have seen in Kawempe, I think the first time I saw him complain was when there was a by-election in Luero. And then later, the 2021 general elections, where he said about 1 million of his votes were stolen or were gifted to another candidate. And now the one in Kawempe, where he also claims that the results are contestable. So I wanted to know, and I saw after you appeared before us, in an interview you said you had constituted either a team to handle that matter. How far have you handled that matter? Do you intend to, when is he going to appear, to give evidence, and which other stakeholders do you need so that we are able to come and also be there? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have something from our most senior?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mine is a little bit of frustration. Mr. Chairman, I don't want this meeting to turn out to be an ordinary ritual. That we come here, sit for 2-3 hours, make a few jokes, and we retire. The people who elected us here, I think, had some hope that we are going to be their voice and will be listened. As we sit here trying to see how we can have a free and fair elections, there are some sons and daughters of men who are thinking of how to have a very unfree and unfair election. They're out there thinking so. And the purpose of meeting like this is, how do we make sure that those sort of fellows don't succeed? Every well-meaning Ugandan would want a free and fair election. But we also must be alive to the fact that they are bad-mannered people who are not thinking as we are, and they are making countermeasures. I don't want to escort those sort of fellows to their journey. Instead, I want to be one of the people to oppose them with the energy I have. Having said that, this process is about the budget of the Electoral Commission. But I don't see anybody from Ministry of Finance here. Are we having a self-conversation? Where are they? This is now a monologue. The people who have been giving them the MTF, the people who cut their budgets are not here. They are not listening to the other voice. Instead, they are going to be seated somewhere and they are busy allocating figures. It makes little sense to me and even to this process. It is high time, Mr. Chairman, colleagues, and the Electoral Commission, that a meeting like this, Minister of Finance should be here and listen to us. Why shouldn't anybody wish a free and fair election, for heaven's sake? Because when they were last here, we are talking about a funding gap, and they have come with the same story of a funding gap. So we continue with the monologue. Having said that, let's go to the issues now. Are we going, I want to have it in no uncertain terms from the Electoral Commission. Are you going to have a biometric voting system or not? Because if we are not going to have it, why are we discussing it? Are we wasting time? And if you are proceeding on the basis of the biometric electoral or voting system, you can't start talking of U-boss tablets. You can't. To use your very words, because that's what the Constitution commands you, a free and fair election. Not so. Let us see where these people use these tablets. Did we have, to use your words, a free and fair census with results which we have faith in? Do we? Because as we talk now, we don't have those results. Do you want to be subject to the same system? That after election, people will not know whether actually those are the results or not? I think you need to really think serious about this. You either prepare for one and funds are available, or we continue preparing for the manual, and we know it will be manual, other than having a debate which is not taking us anywhere, Mr. Chairman. Because I can't understand. Today, as we talk now, how many months past the census? Isn't it over? But we don't have details. And these are the sort of tablets you people want now to subject the people of Uganda to in an election. I think you are causing controversies even before the elections. And then you'll be blaming these tablets. Yet you knew they would not provide what we need. Second, on that issue, my Lord Justice, if you start on procurement of that system now, is it possible that you'll complete it in time, even if the funds were available? And two, when do you expect this sort of funds to be available latest for you to be able to procure this system? Because these are not systems you are going to buy off shelf. You don't walk on Owino or Kampala Road, say, can I have those tablets? And then you take them to your dust offices in industrial area or somewhere. So, because you really need to think about this, and we take a decision as a country, and the decision you have taken actually will be now and not tomorrow. People who are supposed to provide funds are not here. They are not listening to these arguments. They are somewhere in some building So, Mr. Chairman, I think you will find a solution. I don't know how. I have no solution sometimes to the challenges I see. I look at, you still have this problem of new created districts, cities, and so on. You see, when they were introducing these cities, I can give you some information. We got a certificate of financial implications from Minister of Finance, saying that all the money they require will be available. Now they are saying there is no money because of this. Who is fooling who? They came to say, we create these units, the money will be what? Available. Now the activities have come, they are running away even from meetings like this. Sometimes Ugandans, we are jokers, I think. And we joke with our own national issues and our own country. Why did you lie to Parliament that all the monies you require for the implementation and operationalization of these units is available? And Parliament went ahead and created them. Now when it comes to election, you say we don't have money. And we are here tomorrow, the other day, going through the same ritual. Mr. Chairman, I still have this problem of, when you look at page 30, about low voter turnout. Actually, Jonathan, the average turnout is not 65, it is 59.3 of a national election. You are being over optimistic. Generous. It is around 60%. And then these ones of low election is 35. Is it also true that Ugandans now have little faith in this process that produces their leaders, that they are not ready to participate? And if they have little faith, what is the problem? Have we gone ahead to diagnose? So look at why are Ugandans not turning up to elect their own leaders? Because as a representative of the people, I need to have a scientific analysis of this. What are the reasons? Why are Ugandans not very much willing to come up in big numbers? Just imagine 35%, meaning simple arithmetic, 65% have nothing to do with these elections. What is the problem? Such that we address, you see, leaders, you need to have a general consensus that actually the majority of the people have accepted me as their leader. But if you are here and on a mandate of 22%, you know, yes, you're a leader because the law says so, but you lack that consensus amongst your own voters. So we need some analysis since you have been running this process. And you continue to raise the issue of U-boats again and over again. So what is the funding gap you have? And two, between you and your ministry, between you and Minister of Finance, have you had any discussion outside this room about this funding gap? Have you engaged them and they are ready to provide this money? Or you've done it and you have failed, so you come to us because that's what the law says. Then we know how we can add on our voice. Because the funding gap goes to almost, how much? 180 billion. Between now, you estimate the election, because you've not announced the date, to be when? Can we say January, February, or February, March, or January, March? Sorry?
Between January, around January 12th and February 9th.
Okay, January,
Honorable.
Feb. Between January, Feb, and today, we are talking about less than a year, of course. Around 10 months. If this money is not in the budget, that means we go back to what we, is somebody, maybe I put it differently, is somebody trying to create a crisis deliberately? That he'll provide this money at the last minute. He wants you to act. What is our culture as Africans, Mr. Chairman, or Ugandans? We must have a crisis before we act. Everybody knew there was going to be an election after 5 years. It is 10 months to election. We are talking about a funding gap of around 180 billion. And even now, we are not providing the money. So do we have now to prepare for a supplementary? But why do you see, according to the Public Finance Management Act, my Lord knows this. You see, according to the Public Finance Management Act, a supplementary is for unforeseeable and unavoidable. This particular one, it can be foreseen, it is not unavoidable. So why are we not providing money and waiting again for supplementary? Who is fooling who? I go back to the same question. Is somebody deliberately saying, no, don't give them money now, because if you give them money now, they might organize something fair. So just give them at the last minute. Then they act in a crisis. So, to me, Chair, as I conclude, I think the money should be provided. I don't know whether between now and then we need to have a joint meeting. I do propose really a joint meeting because I want to hear from finance. And members, when the chairperson and us who are chairperson of other committees go to the budget committee, you are not there. That's my colleagues, we will not be there. The only time you can hear from ministers of finance is when they come here. But the budget committee won't be there. It will be me, chairman, and maybe one or two other people. Sometimes we might not even put our case better. You can even put it better than us. So, Chair, I would rather suggest, and quite strongly in my view, that we invite finance together with the Electoral Commission, because we are taking the issue of Electoral Commission very seriously. We want a free, credible election, free and fair and credible election. So, can we ask them to come and they tell us, will the money be available or not? And if the money is not available, what are the options? It's the other people when they say your education is very expensive. So if it is expensive, you can try ignorance. It's the other option. So if there is no money for elections, we try other things. I thank you, Chair.
Well, Electoral Commission, Minister of Justice and Finance, because we have a lot of issues pertaining to the policies that require justice, Minister of Justice, so, and probably the Attorney General. So let's look for a date next week, probably Wednesday.
Thank you very much, Chair. And sorry, I had just missed out because, my Lord, I want you to think about one thing. Yes, we have had this issue with you having a home for a very long time. And Stevie knows that even when, I'm not used to seeing him at that end, even these years. I always think he's this side, so.
Someone here now, please.
There's somebody here. and somebody there now was seated right here. He was actually his deputy. So I don't know, but I've been thinking about this. I could be wrong, but let me share it with you, and we can have some discussion. Is it okay for us to have a big capital development project in an election year, which requires very big resources? This is, and even for you to supervise that big capital project, because now you can see we are looking for all the money. At the end of the day, you are thinking about starting to build your own home and so on in an election year. Is it, I don't know, I am grappling with it in my mind, whether this sort of project should be undertaken in an election year, or we should do shelve it, and immediately after the election, then you can start on that big project. So that the funds, because we have this problem of funds, which are being earmarked for that project, can go towards other activities. The only problem also which I'm grappling with in mind, after election, would there people be very much interested in funding the electoral immediate after the election, will they be much willing to fund the headquarters, the Ugandans I know? You see, I don't know whether even that makes sense. So, my Lord, I'm having this debate in my mind. Is it the correct time? But two, immediate after election, will people be thinking about you now to give you 70 billion for this? Or you are used like after some purpose, then you might not be used for it. So I think maybe between now and when they appear jointly, we can have a little bit of conversation about that in good faith to see at what time do we get this money. Oh, we are taking advantage because people now want election, they want to please you, they will provide you a check for your home, or we have to wait because it looks like the money is not enough. Yeah, or blackmail, as the Honorable Deputy Chairperson said. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the for the few minutes longer you gave me.
You are our senior ranking member, so you always have that opportunity to take more minutes. Yes.
Probably in the next 2 weeks, a new phase of this process will be launched, the display. And I'm aware that many of the officials that are working with the commission have not been paid. The arrears are overwhelming, and you have a very demotivated workforce, which makes them very vulnerable. And in the long run, will affect the quality of this process and its outcome. Now, when we look at the budget and the publicity is taking such a big chunk while you have arrears, it really makes me wonder about the priorities. What is your plan? Because you have very demotivated workforce.
Presiding officers at polling stations, and I think the parish supervisors, those contract staff that you get on the last day, I think you have been paying them 50,000 per day on the polling day, 50,000 for the presiding officers, and then you have the polling officials, something like that. To the best of my recollection, that 50,000 has been on for a very long time. You have not reviewed this figure in a very long time. Do you have any plans of improving that figure for the presiding officers, maybe to 100,000 or 150, to enable them be able to, first of all, to appreciate that they have a role to play, and to avoid the risks of being manipulated by the candidates who, what if you find a well-resourced candidate, they could afford up to 100,000 per polling station to compromise those officials. So you give them little money, and I think you need to plan on improving that. Number two, delayed procurements have been highlighted, have been cited as a reason for the low absorption of the resources that you received. in the previous financial year and even this one. And now we are going to a critical period where all the activities must be done efficiently but also swiftly. So do you have any specific intervention that you have planned as a commission to solve the problem of delayed procurements that could actually then delay the provision of the services and eventually affect the efficacy of the election? Do you have a plan? Absorption issues as a result of delayed procurements. The other issue is, of course, a general one, which is an issue that we shall square out with finance. Because of the delayed financing of these activities from around 2 financial years ago, we now have a lot of resources coming in the last year of the election, which causes a lot of absorption issues, and which also, of course, gives a very big figure. Now we start looking at electoral commissioners consuming a lot of money from the resource envelope, when actually if this had been done incrementally from probably 3 financial years ago, by now would not even be talking of the funding gap. Then finally, on the funding gap, we have agreed that we will harmonize with finance. So I don't have anything much to say on that, but if we have that meeting on Tuesday, we'll be able to see what we can do as a committee. But as a committee, we have an obligation to sever, to see how every voter and see whether they merit for funding this particular financial year. Of course, putting in consideration the advice given by Honorable Katuntu, the one on the infrastructure development. But without prejudice, you will give us your idea, Mr. Chairman, on that proposal by Honorable Katuntu on whether we could put aside that program for now and concentrate on key election activities. With those few remarks, I wish now to hand over the microphone to the chairman. How much time do you require, Mr. Chairman? You have a handful.